Hi, how's it going? It's Michael Redmond here. Now, you may well know me as a stand-up comedian, which I actually was for over 30 years. Or you might know me better as Father Stone from the Channel 4 sitcom Father Ted. And if that happens to be the case and you're still wondering how I am after all these years, well, I'm still fine. So what am I doing here? Well, I've kind of retired from stand-up, but I keep coming up with, the odd idea for a joke or a comedy monologue or a comedy routine and that kind of thing because, to be honest with you, I quickly realised that taking up gardening in retirement wasn't going to satisfy me enough. It wasn't going to do it for me. Jesus, gardening. And anyway, I don't have a garden, which is probably why I was often found standing in other people's gardens over the years. So what's this all about? Well, this is my comedy podcast, which I've called "What Are You Doing in My Garden?" I suppose the best way to describe it is it's a short weekly podcast in which I'll be, throwing in a joke or two or talking about a range of things from, say, drink driving in Ireland in the 1970s, my chance encounter with Joanna Lumley, pole vaulting geriatrics, and lots of other things. But no poetry. Absolutely no bloody poetry. So if you've anything to say or add to what I've been musing on the podcast, it'd be great to hear from you. Or in fact, also if you've any questions about Father Ted, I'd be happy to answer them as well. The email address for the podcast is whatdoyoudoinmygarden@gmail.com. Hello, Michael Redmond here again, and welcome back to What Are You Doing in My Garden? We're already on to episode 8 of the podcast. Firstly, just a big thank you to you all for listening so far, and hope you're enjoying it. And also just to say that we've reached the grand number of 5,000 downloads after just 5 weeks, which is absolutely brilliant. Now, this episode is a little bit different than the others because I have my first guest on the podcast in the form of the one and only Mr. Gavin Mitchell, who you also might know as Boaby the barman from Still Game. But many more strings to his bow, as you will learn once you listen in. Now, as many of you well know that Gavin is from Glasgow, and I'm not from Glasgow, as you may have gathered from the accent and the fact that I'm from Dublin, but I have lived in Glasgow for about 26 years now. And I remember vividly when I first came to live in Glasgow was in April 1998. I remember the exact month and the exact year. Because we come up from London and we had sort of twin boys, we were about 4 or 5 at the time. And I was kind of a house husband, so I was kind of minding them for that summer. But I vividly remember it was the rainiest summer on record that Glasgow had had for some time. Now, I've mentioned before how bleak the weather can be in Glasgow, but this was really, really extreme, and I was minding 2 kids, couldn't bring them to the park, had to stay in half the time, so it was pretty hard to get used to. But I did eventually. However, after about 2 or 3 years, my 2 kids went to primary school. There was this couple whose daughter was in the same class as my 2 kids, and I used to see them, herself and her husband, coming to collect the kids in the playground, that kind of thing. And we weren't friends or anything like that, but we were on kind of, nodding terms, that kind of thing. When I say we're on nodding terms, I would nod to them and she would nod back, but the husband never nod back. He just sort of looked at the ground as if sort of he had some problem with me. I thought at first that it was me, but then as time went on, I realised he was like that all the time. He just looked really, really miserable. I haven't seen anybody look so miserable in my life. He kind of just downtrodden all the time. He looked like sort of all the worries of the world were weighing on his shoulder. But I mean, I didn't really know them, so it was none of my business, so I didn't really take much notice of it. But fast forward about 20 years from then, their daughter had gone to live in Brussels to work as a journalist. And at the same time, by coincidence, one of my nephews from Dublin had also gone to live in Brussels to work in the Irish Embassy. Anyway, the two of them got together. I think she had to sort of go to the Irish Embassy now and again for her job as a journalist. And the two of them got together. And when he learned that she was from Glasgow, he mentioned that he had 3 cousins who also lived in Glasgow. I'd also had another son since then. And they made the connection, and she realised that she'd actually been in the same class as my 2 sons in school, which was a coincidence in itself. But after about, I think it was, I don't know, maybe about 6 months after being out together, they decided to come to Glasgow to visit her family. And because I was still in Glasgow with my 3 sons, we all got together in a pub one evening. I was herself and her mother, my nephew, and me and my 3 sons. But I remember at one point during the evening, the mother sort of asked me, so she knew I wasn't from Glasgow, and she asked me when did I first come to Glasgow, and I said it was in April 1998, and I sort of recounted that dreadful rainy summer, apocalyptic, biblical rainy summer in Glasgow. And she said, "Oh, that's a coincidence because my ex-husband came to Glasgow around the same time, arrived in Glasgow around the same time. And I said, what did he think of it? And she said, no, he really, really fucking hated it. He really couldn't believe how bad the weather was. And she showed me that she'd met him in California. I think she was either working in California or traveling around America. Anyway, they fell in love and got married and decided to come back to live in Glasgow. Well, not back. She came back to Glasgow and he decided to come with her because he was her husband. But he couldn't believe what the weather was like in Glasgow. He spent, maybe, I think he was maybe mid to late 30s, I don't know, but he'd spent 35 or more years of his life living in the sunny climate of California, sort of sitting and drinking outside cafes and bars, going to the beach of the weekend and maybe swimming in the sea or skiing with his mates who were all suntanned and that kind of thing. And suddenly he'd arrived in Glasgow after all that time and had these rain clouds hovering over him wherever he went, and he couldn't fucking believe how bad the weather was. He just sort of, I think he was just in shock really. But then I remembered that's probably why he was so fucking miserable all this time, But she mentioned that it was her ex-husband. I said, so did he hate it so much that he went back to California? She said, no, not at all. After a couple of years, he just sort of got used to it and realised that Glasgow was actually great to live. And he never went back to California. In fact, he still lives in Glasgow. I think that's the kind of the attitude I have towards the weather in Glasgow. I suppose I could maybe liken it to sort of, a dear old friend who you've known for years and years, who, can be a bit of a gobshite at times, but because you know this friend so well, the fact that he can be a bit of gobshite doesn't really matter that much. It's overshadowed by the fact that he has so many good traits and you just forget about the bad traits. And that's basically how I feel about the weather in Glasgow. Just get on with it. You're not going to be able to do anything about it. The weather is there, so just live with it, accept it, forget about it. But having said that, I think if I'd come to Glasgow directly from California instead of from Dublin via London, I might well have been as traumatised as her ex-husband was, who knows. Anyway, as I mentioned, I had this brilliant rollicking chat with Gavin, which is coming up now, part one of my chat with the one and only Mr. Gavin Mitchell. So sit back and enjoy. Okay, time for a big added bonus because I'm having a little chat with one of my favourite comedy performers.
So put you.
That's all showbiz bullshit, isn't it? No, you are really one of my favourites. The one and only Mr. Gavin Mitchell.
Hello.
Hello, there he is.
The devil are you?
And his dog Bob, it has to be said, who's sitting under the table.
Yeah, you can hear him tinkling about now and again. That's not a euphemism.
I won't watch so. Right, I'm going to stop and come back 25 years to the first time I met you. You don't remember though, do you?
Oh God, 25 years ago?
Yeah.
Was that, let me guess, was it Velvet Cabinet?
It was!
I do remember it. I talk about that fondly.
Was it not Velvet Soup? I thought it was Velvet Soup.
Well, it became Velvet Soup. The TV show was Velvet Soup.
Yeah, because I thought initially it was Velvet Cabaret.
Yeah.
And then I looked it up and it said Velvet Soup and I thought, it's just my memory's gone.
Because it was actually something before that and I forgot what it was. And it was because we did it in the Velvet Rooms.
Did you do it on radio first?
Yeah.
Because I did a stand-up on it on radio. Yeah,
that's where I remember you from. Because you blew me away. I still talk about it fondly because
really?
You stood there for like, I don't know, it was really brave just the way you stood and didn't say anything for
that's not brave, Gav. Very little material at the time, so more
and you just stood and nodded to people going, aye, yeah. And then it would be silent. I was howling. And then what was it? I'm trying to remember. I was talking about this just the other day, and it was a Chubby Checker. I mean,
the Chubby Checker guy.
The Chubby Checker guy. I mean, what's he doing now? I mean, you can't spend your whole life twisting the night away, can you?
You delivered it better than I did.
So I do remember that very well, actually. It was brilliant. I loved you.
Then I also did a little sketch with you, though.
Oh, of course.
Would have been Velvet Soup.
In Velvet Soup.
And I can't remember. I know I had, at one stage, I probably lost it because I'd moved flat so many times. It was a photograph of you and me. It was a Polaroid photograph. Because, there was no mobile phones then, so, if you wanted to get, normally you'd have a camera and you'd get it processed 3 days later. But it was a Polaroid photograph. One of those crappy ones where it looks like somebody's painted you rather than...
Oh, yeah. Was it from the set or something? It's one of the makeup girls or one of the wardrobe girls have taken a snap.
I think it was, but I think a vague recollection of that sketch was we were supposed to be twins or something.
Oh, right.
I could be wrong.
See, the sketch I remember was I played your son.
Oh, was that it?
And it was, and Mark McDonald played a priest. and they were performing an exorcism. You and my dad, and I was tied to the bed.
Well done, you've got a better memory than me, yeah.
And I was inhabited by all the members of the Rat Pack. And you were
So what was like? I was your father.
You were my father, and you were explaining to the priest. You were saying, "Oh, I don't know, Father. I mean, they're all there. Dino, Frank."
God, it's not going to touch me the more
and
you say it,
strangely, wouldn't get away with it now, but for no good reason, I impersonated like Sammy Davis Jr., Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and then you suddenly went, Jimmy Savile, and and just for a second it froze, and it was me with a cigar going, so we'd never get away with that now.
That was before you knew he was a pedo, wasn't it?
Aye, very much so. But that was Velvet Soup. Yeah. I've got that in DVD somewhere. But
God, you've better remember than me. Well done. Yeah, that's the exorcism. That was it. Yeah.
God, 25 years though. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was talking about it just about a week or so ago, because I always talk fondly about that. But you were just brilliant that night. I said the only man that I've seen who just stood there and just get waves and waves and waves. I laughed at it would all die down, stop again, and then just start again. And all you did was nodding in again.
That's what I still do. Yeah.
Or a wee inhalation.
How long did it go on for?
How long did you not say anything?
That would have been 10 minutes, I know that.
Velvet Cabaret, I think the radio show we did for about 7 years.
Did you?
7 series of them. The telly series wasn't quite so successful. We did 2 series.
2 series, no?
And the second series get cut to ribbons, and they kept shoving the schedule about. So we're on a Friday, another on a Saturday, another on at 9:30, another at 10:30, another at midnight. So
they're just pissing you around.
And they cut it down to 4 eps, I think, by the end of it. So it just killed it eventually.
It was like apparently when Monty Python came out first, they were doing that. They were shoving it to midnight.
I died a death with that, and then after that, it kind of moved on to Revolver.
Yeah, I was in that as well.
Aye, and Revolver was great fun, because that was...
In fact, I've just been...
We've been following each other all
Following
this
Gavin
time.
around and I get some work.
And because Revolver was... I can't believe we're talking about Jimmy Savile so much. Revolver always put me in mind of... it was like Jim Will Fix It, because you were going to your work every day going, who am I working with today?
That's a different actress from different things, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was people for the 70s and stuff, so it was Julie Goodyear, Melvin Hayes.
It was Melvin Hayes. I was in the sketch with Melvin Hayes.
Lionel Blair, Honor Blackman.
They gave me Melvin Hayes instead of Honor Blackman, the bastards.
Leslie Phillips, Roy Barraclough.
Really, wow.
God, it was amazing. It was just an amazing... Every day you're just going, wow, you know. It's Leslie Phillips. That's bonkers, you know. Leslie Phillips up in Maryhill. Or we were all in the Surrey Heat one day, I remember filming.
Really?
And there was Melvin Hayes and people like that in the Surrey Heat. And you could see guys sitting going, fuck me, this white tornado's strong, you know.
What's Melvin Hayes? He was in Ain't Half Hot Man, was it?
Aye, he played Gloria. Yeah. But before that, in fact, not that far from here, in those days it was called the Crosslands Bar in Queen Margaret Drive, which is the pub that they filmed Trainspotting in, where Begbie throws the glass over his shoulder and starts a fight.
Sorry, I was in it the other day. My son, he says, it's called the Brewdog or something.
That's right, Brew House or something, I think. And we used to go there on a Friday night and have a drink, and karaoke was on. Yeah. And I always remember we went down, it was Julie Goodyear had wrapped early, and we went down early, and we were with Melvin and some of the makeup girls, all the rest of it. And I'll no insult your intelligence, we'd had a wee drink. and so we're getting up singing songs and all that, and Melvin said, I want to sing a song. Let's sing a song. And like, aye, all right, Melvin.
He was really camp, wasn't he?
We got up, no, in real life he's no. Hung like a horse. No, I think he used the camp thing. That being a wee guy, like a wee mouse, women wanted to look after him. He thought, oh, thanks very much. Come on. He was never out.
He knew what he was doing. It was all a ploy.
He was never out of clary pants when he was up here. The bouncers knew him. He got us in. It was mental. But we all got up, and he said, and there was a team of us were off our faces, and we got up with Melvin, and he says, these are all my kids. I'm going to sing a song. Want to sing a song. I want to sing Summer Holiday. Right? And I forgot he was in Summer Holiday with Cliff Richard and all that. Aye. He drove the big red bus. So they couldn't find the CD.
All going on
And so while we're waiting for the guy to find the song and all that, we just started going, meet the gang, 'cause the boys are here. So we all started doing it 8.5 Hot One. It was brilliant. And then we sang Summer Holiday, and then Julie came in. And again, no insult intelligence. She did a wee bit before she arrived.
She in Carnage Street.
Aye, she used to play Bet Lynch.
She used the barmaid, yeah.
And she came in, she'd hospital greens on for the last sketch she'd done, and her hair all back in a scrunchie, and a cigarette holder with her thigh half cut. And she'd went to see some rough cuts of sketches.
Garbo sort of look at her, yeah.
And they'd plied her with Bacardi. So she arrived, she was already steaming, and says, hey, Gavin Cock, do you want to sing a song with me? And I'm like, aye, sure, not a problem. And so we got up and we sang Something Stupid together, you know that. Then I go and spoil it all by saying something stupid. So we got up, sing together. We get back upstairs, and by this time punters are starting to go, what's going on? Because it's got an upstairs bit you could kind of hide in.
It's still an upstairs bit.
Aye, it's got a pool table up there now, I think.
Yeah.
And so punters start making their way up, and again you could see punters going, what's going on? That's the wee fellow out in Half Hotmut and the woman out of Coronation Street. And Still Game had just come out, so it was just starting to bubble a wee bit.
Yeah.
And some of the punters come up and they're looking for Julie's autograph and what have you. And this guy came up, somebody came up and started asking me for autographs, and Julie said to another one of the cast, like, yeah, why are they asking Gavin for autographs? I said, oh, he does this sitcom that's just started, and it's round about this area and all that. I'm like, oh, all right. And this guy came up going, here, man, that's fucking magic, by the way. That's like a Christmas #1. Like fucking Bet the Barmaid and Boaby the barman.
Superb.
It was brilliant. But it's a revolver. Great. But again, died in its arse, sadly.
Yeah, it did.
You thought it would have done.
What was the name of the producer? Gary something.
Oh God, Gary Chippington.
Gary Chippington, that's it.
Yeah. But we'd also Stephen Graham, who played Blakey on the buses, and who was amazing. He was brilliant as well. I remember we did a sketch where I did a series of sketches with him. Mel's Jupp, I think, was in those sketches as well. And it was, they were surreal. It was like shoe salesman, and he was the boss. And there was one where he threw a shoe, and it was like Robin Hood, the way it was filmed, like the shoe spun after you like an arrow, and then would hit you in the back of the head. And he did it this day, and it was meant to be his reaction, and he had a big fisheye lens and giant close-up in his face. And so they go for his reaction, and he just pulled this face and strained the muscles in his neck, and was going purple in his head, eyes bulging like big eggs. And then they went, cut. And Eric, the director, went, I'm sorry, Stephen, could we try another, but could you maybe vocalise your anger? And he said, oh, of course, I'm so sorry, my darling, not a problem, so sorry. Sorry, everyone, sorry. Okay, let's go again. So they go, right, we're running up, we're at speed, and action. And the scene goes, starts pulling this face, going purple again, eyes going like big eggs and all that, and then he just went,
yeah, it was, you know, like the director said, could you maybe do this and reflect it here and do, you know, but the sketching absolutely was that the guy does this thing, and then the director comes up and says, could you do it better?
Aye, some of the things. I remember doing an advert, and it sounds very flash, but I did an advert for Miller in New York years ago. For the
it was filmed in New York?
Super Bowl. I filmed in New York.
Great.
Mad advert where it's meant to mean a peep show. Putting money in this peep show, and it opens up and the girl comes out, and I'm like, really bored and disinterested. Then she pulls out the bottle of Miller, and I'm like, oh, and it's just me excuse to pull faces. And all these young producers are sitting up the back all week, and they were like young guys with baseball hats on, smoking big cigars and drinking all week and all that. And they would talk to another producer who was sent down to give kind of instructions and keep them all happy and feedback. So these guys are trying to justify their position. And this producer came down and said, could you make it flatter?
Flatter?
What the fuck does that mean? I don't know.
They just have these words, don't they?
Sure, not a problem. Flatter.
Yeah.
How's this? Excellent. Okay.
I think they don't know what they're talking about half the time. They just chancing their arms. They have these words, don't they?
Buzzwords. And,
buzzwords, exactly. Yeah.
Well, the old BBC used to build that, I think, Queen Margaret Drive. It was almost like uniforms, secret uniforms as well. You'd see people walking about with certain frames or that time combat trousers and things like that, and you were like, and using the kind of same terms. There was a hidden kind of vocabulary and stuff.
I work for the BBC.
Aye, exactly. You'd see them hanging about certain pubs. You thought, aye, they're for the BBC.
I remember there was remember kids at school. There was a woman who worked in the BBC. I can't remember her name, but her son was the same age as my kids. But I remember her on the phone one day. She was "Yeah, I have a meeting at the BBC very soon." But she wanted to emphasize.
Oh, right.
Everybody know I've got a meeting at the BBC.
Well, that's B as in
as in B, yeah, and then another B.
C. Yes, yeah.
She wanted everybody at the playground to know she had a meeting at the BBC.
Man, says more about you than cash ever can.
It was big. I remember I did an audition because I mentioned to you before we came on air, as it were, that I'm not really an actor as such. I mean,
neither am I, Michael.
I don't really, but after Father Ted, I got lots of auditions and castings because they thought I was a proper actor. They didn't realise that the guys saw me doing stand-up and they thought, he's Father Stone, kind of,
But isn't that amazing, though? That you think, because the character just lives on. Everybody knows who Father Stone is, and everybody knows who you are. It's astonishing. And was it one ep or two ep?
Only one.
Or was it only one? I always think you were in more than one.
It was repeated quite a lot. I think that particular episode. I don't know why.
Because I remember that ep, and then I thought you were in another ep where there's a group of them or something. The one where they all go to the department store or the aeroplane or something.
No, it definitely wasn't. I think the writers had written me into it a little bit, but the producer said no, it's kind of just the same joke again, really. So they left me out. But yeah, I mean, it was brilliant. I couldn't believe it, But I went for this. I used to get these castings after this Father Ted because it was getting quite well known. It was in Glasgow actually. They said they were looking for a deadpan doctor. So I just read it as me because I was looking for a deadpan. And he said, yeah, could you not be a bit more like a doctor? And I just said, no, I don't know what to do. Sorry, I'm not an actor.
Well, it's mad because I can't remember the last time I did it, but it used to be when you went up for commercials, and it was just just horrible. It was just a cattle market.
Yeah, I know.
And you'd go in a wet Monday morning.
There were 20 other people waiting. You just went in and out.
And you used to go in. And well, funnily enough, that Miller one, there was 2 adverts, and they cast it in Glasgow, New York, London, somewhere else, and it was a Monday morning. You walk in, most people are there, and I was up for 2. One of them was, and I was told by the agent, make sure you wear clean pants.
Outside pants or underpants?
Underpants. Because one of the ads was the one I mentioned and put in money, screen comes up. The other one was, you strip down to your pants, actually do this in the audition, strip down to your pants and dance, mime opening a fridge, take out the bottle of beer, look at the beer, sit it down and then start dancing. And the gag was twist to open. And but you need me to strip down my pants. I mean, I guess they want to see your body or whatever, and who can blame them?
In those days, you were somebody, Gavin.
But unbelievable things. There was one for Cravendale, I think it was.
What's Cravendale?
Milk.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And I think the setup was... we walked in, there's a group of people all sitting going, all right, and everybody's kind of a bit shame about them. Going, oh, you're going up for it? Aye. And you all read the script, and then you can see everybody kind of looking at each other like, oh, for fuck's sake, this is going to ask me to do what? And what, when you read it was this journey of a guy through milk. He's sitting with a cup of tea, looking at his window in the field, and he sees a cow and wanders off and starts thinking about the history of milk.
This is ringing a bell. I think this is ringing a bell.
It made it to the telly, and it was like, so you see like a caveman crawling about, and he sees a cow, and he's like, oh, and he gets a shock for the cow, and at one point you see him developing into Cro-Magnon, man, and then a cow going, and how he reacts to the moo, and it goes on and on and on until he's carrying buckets of milk, and a cow appears almost like Our Lady or something. Aye, and
the virgin cow.
Aye. and it was just surreal. And then eventually, Cravendale and back to him with his cup of tea going, isn't milk fucking magic?
All that for just some
Aye.
glass of milk.
But you'd be sitting there outside waiting your turn, and you've read the script, and you're going, "Oh dear God, what?" Because when you went in, you'd to run about as a caveman and do all sorts of things and mime all sorts of nonsense. But everybody that went in before you, because you'd all read the script, you'd go, "Good luck," and off they'd pop. And at some point in the room, you heard.
Your party was at that.
And everybody was just howling, and then the person had to walk out and do a wee walk of shame like that. All right, see you later.
The horror of those things. Yeah.
Just you felt dirty, soiled.
Yeah. Did you have to audition for Still Game, by the way?
I did actually. Funnily enough, well, it's weird because the Still Game thing was because originally I was Winston.
Oh yeah, I didn't know.
And Still Game, we did a series about '96 called Pulp Video. It's another sketch show.
That also rings a bell, yeah.
And we did a couple of sketches. One was, no, it's true, Bob. Bob just signed.
He knows when you're lying, yeah.
And it was, Greg and I played two old men. Yeah. And there's, what were they called now? Secret eye pictures. I know when you looked at a picture long enough and it changes. Yeah, you could see something in it.
Yeah.
And the gag was that it was two old men looking at a picture, and they say that if you look at it close enough, it actually, and this fist came out and smacked one of us in the face, and the other one ran off. And then the other sketch was we're sitting eating ice cream at a play park, and Greg's talking about music while I'm just licking an ice cream all through the sketch. And it was, music nowadays, you've got your dub, you've got your reggae dub, you've got your house, you've got your deep house, you've got your jazz, you've got your acid jazz. You've got, and it just goes on and on and on, this list. And eventually I just turn around with the code and take it and go, "Oh, I know. I barely know what drugs to take with which."
So that was the precursor to the...
That was the precursor, and Ford said, there's something in this. There's something in these old guys. And out of boredom, as you know, sketch shows, you're sitting your backside a lot.
Talking nonsense, yeah.
We started talking like old men and just saying really inappropriate stuff about sex, drugs and rock and roll in old men's voices and making each other laugh. So the two of them wrote two sketches. Which you can still get on YouTube, I think. And I was Winston, but my Winston was really doddery and forgetful, and that was the kind of gag, really. He'd just come back for the ice cream van with cones, and they thought he'd get lost. But he was a really shaky old bugger. He wouldn't have made it through the first series, my Winston. And then they wrote a play.
They did the Fringe, didn't they?
They did the Fringe, and they took it. God, they took it all over the world. They took it to Canada, and they took it everywhere. Then it was filmed in Cottairs at one point. And I couldn't do it up to the last minute. I was meant to be doing it, and then I was doing a children's telly, and they wouldn't release me. And then came the great Paul Riley, and he became Winston, really, and he made it his own, which and far better Winston than I ever would have done. And then I wasn't originally Boaby either. It was another actor called Billy McElhaney. Who was in, he used to be in River City, he played Scarlett's wife. Brilliant actor, actually. And they did a pilot, and he played Boaby, but he was unavailable.
And you weren't in any of it?
I wasn't in any of it. I was doing, it's probably while I was doing Velvet Soup, actually. And because they then did the old men and Chewing the Fat.
That's right,
Billy did... Billy did that. He wasn't available. He was doing an Irving Welsh play down in London, which was called "You'll Have Had Your Hole." That's what I call theatre.
It's like a sophisticated play then.
Yes. Well, my darling, would you like to go and say "You'll Have Had Your Hole"? And I came. But the funny thing was, they made me audition, and Colin Gilbert and the two boys were there, and Michael Hines, and they were like, this has got to be on the money, and I'm thinking, but it's just a barman, it's no rocket science, It's just, the tone's got to be right, and all this kind of thing. Little did I know they were absolutely taking the piss, and they weren't seeing anybody else, they just did it to me out of badness. So I was like, you fuckers. And then I was downstairs doing a sitcom called Snoddy at the time, and I had my head was shaved. And as an actor, you'd always try to hide behind something or a prop or look different and all that. And I thought, I don't want to look the same. So the makeup girl who did it all those years, 17 years or more now, Julie, said, brought this box of wigs and said, I've got this idea, but you'll probably not like it. But just bear with me. And I went, okay, what is it? And she went, it's a mullet. And I thought, oh, Jesus, what? And so she pulled out this wig.
It just fits perfectly, doesn't it? Yeah.
And I thought, I'll try it on. She said, please, just for me, try it. Fuck. And I pulled it on, and then I caught myself in the middle, and I thought,
that is Boaby.
hello, there's a missing member of Duran. So Boaby was born.
I was born. God, and I didn't tell you that you were the only one there for it. That's bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah, it's sliding doors, just the way that it all worked out. It could have been so different.
Yeah. So you were in work all the time then, from going from the Velvet Soup to Velvet Cabaret to Velvet Soup and
I touch wood, not anymore, madam. But there was a period where I was really busy. I mean, at one point I think I was doing Pulp Video and Atletico Party simultaneously. I was doing a sitcom. And then, there was a point where, it was nuts.
That's great.
I did things like taking over the asylum with David Tennant. And then I jumped from there the day I finished that. I then went from one hospital to another to do cardiac arrest, which they've just repeated recently on BBC 4. But it's nearly 30 odd years ago. Jesus.
Yeah, I know.
Now, we're just looking into the maw of death, Micheal.
Once this podcast goes out, they become running screaming for you again, Gavin. Don't worry.
It'll be a posthumous, probably.
Yeah. Even still,
I'll probably get stabbed on my way home the night down the canal and used like a fucking paddle board.
I haven't done anything like the amount of auditions you did, but I did. Remember The Commitments, the film The Commitments?
Oh God, yeah.
This is before Father Ted. But I was doing stand up in London at the time. I was kind of quite well known at them because I was getting a bit of telly in that, and they asked me to do an audition for Joey the Lips, the sax player.
Oh, brilliant! Oh, cool.
Number one, as I said, I'm not an actor, but idiot fucking agent said they're looking for this guy to do a deadpan saxophonist. Could you go and do an audition for it? And I happened to be in Ireland at the time. I was staying with my sisters down the country, and they eventually there's no mobile phones, but they eventually got in touch with me. So I went up with them. What's the Alan Parker? Isn't that
yeah.
famous director?
I forgot it was on.
There was some casting guy there as well. I think he's quite well known. Hubbard, is it Hubbard?
Oh yeah, Andy Hubbard. They're a family of casting directors,
that's right.
Actually.
There's a father and wife and son. I think I'm pretty sure.
I can't remember. There's like generational now.
Was it Dan? Dan rings a bell.
Dan Hubbard rings a bell. Yeah.
But I think he was there, and there was Alan Parker. I wasn't really that interested anyway, because I had no desire to pursue an acting career anyway, and I'm not really very good at acting anyway, so I just did this.
I beg to differ, my darling.
So I did this deadpan version of Joey the Lips, and I could feel the tension. I could see them. What the fuck is this? I mean, I blame my agent to a degree because she said they're looking for I don't know. She got my fucking parts mixed up or something. She said they're looking for a deadpan, which he's not in the least. He's the opposite of deadpan. And they were obviously thought, this guy, what the fuck is he doing here? He was shuffling papers and fiddling about. It was just a disaster.
God, but it's mad. Audition stories are crazy.
Yeah.
I remember, but because I'm untrained as well, and I've done it for a long time, but I still have a wee bit of, like everybody have imposter syndrome. Yeah. And early doors, I remember going to audition for the first time for pantomime.
I thought you were going to say you had an audition for Early Doors, the TV thing.
Oh, I went to Musselburgh, I think it was, and I didn't know what you did. I read a wee bit and all that, and then they said, "Have you got a song?" I went, "Sorry,
party piece."
Have you got a song? You're meant to have songs. I went, no, but I tell you what. Hold on, how about this? I'll do Mick Jagger singing Doris Day. And they kind of looked at me like, what the fuck is he talking about? And I went, the Deadwood stage is coming on over the hill. And I did this whole thing as Mick Jagger singing Doris Day. And it's the dangerous land, no songs in your life. So, whip crack away. Yeah. And Okay, well, thanks for coming along.
Thanks
Bye-bye. Right, fucking, you read the room well there, Gav.
Yeah. That's brilliant. I wish I'd seen that.
Oh,
But I mean, I sort of know you more as a comedy actor, if you like, rather than, which would you prefer? Do you like doing comedy or straight stuff, or do you not care really?
I don't know. No, I'm just happy to work.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I prefer straight, if I'm
Yeah,
honest.
yeah.
Just because
Less pressure, I suppose.
I was straight. I don't mean to be cocky, but I was a kind of straight actor, and I sort of fell into comedy.
All right.
And then people associated, just associate me with
Thankfully, you
comedy.
did fall into comedy.
Aye, and because I'd started at the Citizens in Glasgow, and it was all straight classical theatre.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to think what the first kind of break was. I think I was doing John Byrne's Slab Boys or something like that, and I got spotted in that, got a wee bit in Parahandy, and then one thing led to another, and then it just kind of went bump, 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 and everybody associated comedy.
Yeah.
And then at one point, I get Taggart. I took over as the new pathologist,
What did you?
and I thought, woof, job for life.
Yeah.
Because it was the previous guy who'd done it for about nearly 30 odd years, and they popped his clogs and they brought me in, and I was like, yes. And, I think I lasted 2 episodes and they get rid of me. So I was playing this posh Scot called, I still remember his name, Robin Carlyle Forbes, who was this pathologist who really kind of loved himself.
Yeah.
And but I remember I was like brilliant, and took it really seriously. And then people said, "Can you watch Taggart?" I just kept going, oh, just waiting for a laugh.
Yeah.
And because I was dealing with bodies and explaining what had happened in time of death and all this kind of stuff, they said, we just kept expecting you to like press them and they'd fart or something. But sometimes I like to think I've managed to keep the plate spinning, and and the best thing about it is variety. So I like to do a wee bit of everything. Really keep it all
I suppose I've
going.
never seen you in straight. Anything I saw it was with Velvet Soup, and then later.
Well, hopefully, I mean, I have done straight. I mean, more recently, I suppose Crime, Irvin Welsh's Crime,
Have you done that?
and Touch Wood. I'm coming back, and that's very straight kind of stuff.
But I love the range of characters you do in Fags, Mags and Bags. I'll just explain for the viewers that Fags, Mags and Bags is a Radio 4 show written by Sanjeev Kohli and Johnny McCleary.
Yeah, brilliant.
And I play a bishop, and I've gone up from a priest to a bishop.
And you see, you can't act. Come on, you're beyond method.
I suppose if there's any Hollywood directors out there looking for a pope, I'm the man. That'd be fantastic.
Brilliant. God.
Yeah, God, yeah. From Pope to God, that'd be the next step, yeah.
But I know Fags, Bags and Mags are amazing. I mean, what we're on now, 10 series, 11 series?
It's the 11th, actually.
Is it 11th?
Yeah.
Jesus.
I only committed to think it was the 4th or 5th, I think, yeah. I think it was I don't know whether somebody played the bishop before, but some
Gerard Kelly.
Yeah, was he played?
It was Kelly. He passed away. I've forgotten his name now, but Kelly's very funny, but completely different, obviously.
Yeah, he must have been it wasn't the same bishop, though, was it? But
No.
They changed the name or something, because it would have been weird.
No, he was completely different.
It would have been weird going from Gerard Kelly bishop to Michael Redmond bishop.
No, in fact, I don't even know. Kelly wasn't a bishop. Kelly was just a priest, actually.
Priest.
Because it was just, here he comes, Father, I
whatever
can't remember
his
his
name is,
name, Murphy or whatever it was. And it was Kelly just being very Kelly. Oh, hello, God, whatever.
But I love the range of characters. I mean, you can just slip into different characters, which is amazing. Not just recording, but I noticed, during lunchtime or as an interval, you can just slip into different characters. Somebody asked you a question.
That's drugs for you, Michael.
Drugs for you. It's a pity you didn't give any to me.
That's ADD for you.
I don't know whether it was a character you've done before, but it was this kind of paranoid kind of camp guy. Because I remember Julie Nimos said to you, it was during lunch, I think she said, so what are you up to later, Gavin? And you said, what I do in my own time is my own business.
Oh, that sounds like me, to be honest, Michael. None of your damn business. What I do in my own time is my own business. Yeah. Something like that.
And she said something like, you go, yes. It's totally paranoid about what you were doing later, as if it's a world secret or something.
But I think it's brilliant that though, because it was weird because for years and years I used to play different characters and used to sketch shows, and then by the time we got to something like Velvet Soup and Gary Chippington, funnily enough, had this thing where he kind of knocked that out of us.
Did he?
He wanted people to be more naturalistic. So it was like, didn't want accents, didn't want funny voices, didn't want impersonations, didn't want, so it was like...
Didn't want anybody to be funny then, really.
So it was being yourself, and you're like, I'm no very funny, or you became dead self-conscious or self-aware.
There's more pressure on you,
and trying to make a line work and things like that. And then eventually, it's come full circle a wee bit. So when you do something like Fags, Bags and Mags, as you know, it's kind of... The lovely thing about that job is nobody's got an axe to grind. It's fun. Yeah. Everybody that's there is there for the right reasons, and it's just a laugh and it's a giggle. And the boys are so encouraging. Oh, they're brilliant. As is Gus, the producer, and they're like,
the script as well is just
try whatever, do whatever. I come in sometimes going, well, I could do this, or how about, or would you like? Whatever, do whatever you want. You know,
they have trust in the performers. Like, they get them in because they know they've trust in them.
And it's so kind of enjoyable. So it's taken us full circle. You just end up doing daft things or messing about.
Exactly.
Really, which just makes.
I remember the first one. I didn't have to audition, but I remember the first reading. It was in the comedy unit's place, and I was petrified because I'd never done anything like that before. But the minute I just started talking, everybody was laughing, and it was just brilliant. I couldn't believe it. I know the boys love you, and Donnie's like a massive fan as well, and you can see it every time you speak, and it's so it's such an honour. I think it's so lovely when you know that they're writing for you, behind you, exactly.
That you've been there that long that you think the bishop is yours.
Exactly.
He's written specifically for Michael Redmond.
And when I die, no other bastards do it.
In fact, if I go down, the whole fucking show goes down, darling.
Yes, I want it pulled from Radio 4.
I'm taking every fucker with me. But no, it's amazing. Long may it continue. It's just a shame it's never made it to telly.
It is, yeah. I mean, before,
I don't understand.
I know when I worked in London, if you had a hit Radio 4 show, it would just automatically go. I mean, it was a comedy, so if you had a hit Radio 4 comedy, it went almost straight to television. It wasn't even going to...
Well, it's funny, isn't it? I mean, I get asked this a lot when I do my solo show or stuff.
Which is something I want to ask you about later, by the way. Go on.
Because people were talking about, people ask you, how do you get into things, or whether it be writers or actors and stuff like that. Yeah. And I never know what to say to people anymore, because things have changed so much. The whole shop floor's changed. I came from the background of... people wrote a radio pilot, and then you'd hopefully got the pilot made, and if the pilot was a success, you might get a series, and then if the series was made, it might transfer to a TV pilot, and then if the TV pilot, it might get a series, and it was there was a logic to it.
There was always kind of a movement,
and there was also a kind of writer's room, and there was also feedback, and it definitely happened. There's people that Neil Clark would send back, he'd look at stuff and get, but now I don't know how things get made, to be honest.
It's just all changed, doesn't it?
It seems to be you have to know people. Well, I guess you always have had to.
Up to a point, but I think it's got more like that. Yeah, definitely more like that, yeah.
It's more, it seems
and I think
quite...
also with sitcoms, they tend to kind of find, how can this be a vehicle for somebody famous rather than...
Yeah.
I mean, I have no objection to somebody being famous, but
but it's but I'd like to see something fresh or some new faces.
Exactly.
Or the other classic I always found was, we want something new, we want something different, and we want something a little bit edgy. Yeah. And then you do something new, something different, a wee bit edgy, and they're like, oh no, not that different or edgy. We'd like it a wee bit more like this thing that we didn't want it to be like.
Exactly, that's exactly it.
Well, this kind of defeats the purpose. Just kind of weird.
Possibly what happens is it's just attracting a lot of people who just want to work in television regardless of what it is.
Yeah.
They don't really know anything about comedy,
No, exactly.
Well, some of them do, obviously,
Some do, I totally agree. I think, I've come across so many people that wouldn't know what was funny if it bit them in the backside. And they also didn't know when they were on the shop floor who did what. They'd be barking at somebody who was going, "But hey, I work in wardrobe. What are you telling me that for?" That's got nothing to do with it. And that was just people who wanted a job in
television. I work in television, basically,
and wanted to climb up to the top.
And
now I think, and not just telly, I think sadly we live in a society now where there's a lot of people climb ladders without rungs.
That's a beautiful description. Yeah.
And they don't
just float up in the air. Yeah.
They want a position and they want a job for life.
Yeah.
But how they got there, God knows. They don't actually know how anything works.
No,
they just want to go, I work in, and I live in this postcode. Thanks very much. And,
I'd like a job in the BBC.
And I drive a such and such. Oh, good for you. And what is it you do? I don't really know, but I've got a job title. Oh, smashing. Okay, bye-bye, Raoul.
Raoul.
But the same for actors. This whole controversy now that, really difficult to be a working class actor. How do you
Really,
get in? How do you afford it? How do you it's become more and more richer people, or you're nothing against them, but
I know what you mean. Yeah,
your people like your Cumberbatches and your
and
all that who have been incredible successes, but it's money talks.
Of course,
It's mental. But
you mentioned your solo show.
Yeah.
Which was on the Stand, wasn't it? Recently?
It was,
and Edinburgh, I think. I wonder, actually, I know this isn't, but I actually wanted to go, but I had a family commitment. Genuinely, I swear. I've got photographs to prove it with the date of the newspaper. But what do you do in it? I mean, you don't do stand-up as such, do you?
No, I don't. But pretty much I've just blown the whole show already. No, I just kind of... It started with... there's a show we do where it's 5 of us from Stilgate. And then... on and off, we've kind of done it. Sometimes it's been 5 years. Sanj and I have done a show together. But we basically, we tell stories. Yeah. And so when it's me, it's the same. I just basically tell stories of how I get into the business. And I just chat, really.
And do you slip into funny characters?
A wee bit, but it's not a show per se, really. It is just me talking. And I never know what I'm going to do or say, really.
That's brilliant.
It's just me... being interviewed, really, and then a break, and then it's a Q&A, and then the Q&A is the best part, to be honest, because you just...
I've done that with the Father Ted stuff. I know.
It just takes on its own kind of life. You never know what's going to say, what's going to happen, and I really enjoy it. So it's... I never quite know what's going to happen, and I kind of thought, I don't know about this, and I was particularly, I found out, well, apart from the first night of the Hydro, when I found out that the colour of adrenaline was brown. But
we've all been there.
But to be in the Stand, I was like, oh Jesus, the Stand, oh fuck. So many people associate it with comedy and stand-up. Everybody's going to think I'm doing a stand-up show. Oh no, I'm going to get killed.
Tell us a joke, Gavin, for fuck's sake.
That wasn't very fucking funny. He's talking about depression. What? Okay, this is the longest story ever with no punchline.
Were you nervous going on? More nervous than you would say?
I was really nervous doing the Stand, actually. I think two reasons. One, I think because it was the Stand, what that's perceived as and what's associated with it, and what I thought people would think they thought I was going to do, and be very disappointed. And 2, I hadn't done anything since the previous year. It was the first time I'd done anything this year.
So you were
and my mind was just blank, completely blank, and I suddenly panicked. I was just backstage going, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I don't know what you say. I've not thought of it. I'm just the most boring man in the fucking world. I'll just get my cock out. I'll faint. Oh God, could I just I just started spiraling, and then I was on, and boom, it kind of.
Once you were up there, it was kind of fun.
It was a couple of minutes in, sheer adrenaline and panic. Sort of got me through.
I think you could, maybe not, I don't mean a stand-up as an observational stand-up, but I think the amount of characters you do. Because you're kind of a comedy, you're not necessarily an impersonator, but you're kind of a comedy caricaturist, if that doesn't sound too poncy, because you can just slip into all these different characters. You don't necessarily impersonate, somebody famous or some politician.
I used it, it's funny, I don't think it like that. I mean, and I don't think, I'm pretty lazy, I think, nowadays. I used to, I don't really do it so much that I'm not aware of what I do. And I used to, as I say, in the early days, I was known for doing lots of accents or characters and specific impersonations. Because one of them being, as you've spoke about in the podcast before, was doing Humphrey Bogart. So,
because I did on the podcast, I did a shit Humphrey Bogart. Can you just do a good one for me, please? Take your time, if you want.
Well, it's all sort of down there, and he has a slight lisp. And the lisp comes from a boating accident. That was a piece of wood paralyzed his top lip. So that's why he lisps. All the gin joints and all the towns and all the world, just to walk into mine. Here's looking at you, kid.
So yeah, so I think to work it in.
So there you go. What a brilliant chat. And firstly, a big thanks to Gavin for coming along. We had a brilliant time together, chatting for about an hour and a half for the evening. And it's the first time I've actually interviewed somebody on the podcast, so I think it went really well. But let us know what you think. We had a great evening, and it wasn't just the chat we had. We also had a bit of a social evening afterwards, and I let Gavin sample a couple of Corpse Survivor cocktails, which I think he really enjoyed. He had about 3 or 4, and he mentioned something about being a little bit squiffy before he left my flat. We also had a game of carom together. Well, a few games of carom together. We were all a bit pissed, so it didn't really matter, but we had a great time, and I really enjoyed the interview, and hopefully in weeks to come I can get some more people on to interview, because I really enjoyed the format. So let's know what you think, and we will get more interviewees on later on in the podcast. Now, you'll know that the part of the title of this episode is Meeting Dame Helen Mirren for the second time. Now, the first time I met Dame Helen Mirren was back in 1989 or 1990. It was at the Just for Laughs Comedy Festival in Montreal, because I was in London at the time, and I was invited over to do the Just for Laughs Comedy Festival in Montreal, which was quite a big thing at the time. But I remember there was one evening we were all, I can't remember why we went there. I think we were all standing on this hill, myself and a few mates, and it was kind of overlooking the city of Montreal. I think I think people went there because it was such a good view. But it was only myself and a few mates, and Helen Mirren was there with a bit of her entourage as well. And because there was just a few of us there, we kind of introduced each other and that kind of thing. And I say, the first time I met Helen Mirren, I think, we just sort of said, "Hi, how's it going? Lovely view," and that kind of thing. I'm sure she talks about it ever since. Who knows? But, that was the first time I met Helen Mirren. Now, about 3 days ago, I was coming out of my flat, and this woman, I live in a block of flats. I live on the ground floor, and there's about, there is exactly 2 floors in the block of flats. But I was coming out of my flat one day, and this woman was coming down the stairs from her flat. And she said, "Oh, I'm your new neighbour, pleased to meet you." And I said, "How you doing? I'm Micheal." And she kind of looked at me and said, "I can see you're a little bit shocked, and it's not the first time, don't worry. Everybody, when they see me first, they think, 'My God, it's Dame Helen Mirren.'" The thing is, this woman, apart from the fact that she was maybe around the same age group as Helen Mirren, and had a very, very slight resemblance, she didn't look in the least bit like Helen Mirren, but somebody had obviously told her at some point that she's the image of Dame Helen Mirren, and she's taken it on board. So, I introduced myself as Micheal, but she didn't tell me what her name was. She said, "Well, now that you've met me, you won't be so shocked the next time." And then she just went away. What do I do the next time I meet her? Do I call her "Good morning, Dame," if I meet her on the stairs, or what do I say? And I thought she would tell me her real name. Maybe her real name is Helen, I don't know, but definitely not Dame Helen Mirren. But I was thinking maybe that if she never does tell me her real name, I can just, maybe invite her around for one of my Cointreau cocktails to my flat one evening, and I can tell my friends, "You'll never guess who was having cocktails in my flat the other evening." So I'll let you know how that pans out. So that's about it for this week. We're going to finish as ever with my Cointreau cocktail of the week, and we'll be back next week with episode 9, which includes the second part of my chat with the wonderful Gavin, and also I'll be telling you about the origin of river dance. Till then, bye-bye. So I just mentioned that we're going to finish with my Cointreau cocktail recipe of the week. That was a little bit of a lie, because in this week's cocktail there isn't actually any Cointreau in it for a change. I'll tell you why, because I was in the pub a couple of days ago with my brother and his girlfriend, and the particular pub in question served cocktails, and she decided to have a French Martini. Now, I'd never heard of the cocktail, the French Martini, but she got one and I tasted it, and it was really lovely. So I decided to have a few myself, and I really enjoyed it. So I thought I'd put out this recipe this week. Instead of a Cointreau cocktail, it's a French Martini. But the thing about the French Martini, it's neither French nor has it got any martini in it, believe it or not. I say it's not French. It could have started in France, I don't know, but it doesn't have any martini in it. It's It's a lot sort of milder than last week's cocktail, the Corpse Survivor. You can have 2 or 3 without getting too pissed. So here we go. For this cocktail, you need 20 milliliters of vodka. That's straight vodka, by the way, none of this sort of flavoured vodka nonsense. Also 20 milliliters of pineapple juice, fresh pineapple juice, and about 5 milliliters of Chambord. That's the kind of raspberry liqueur. You can have a bit more than 5 milliliters of Chambord if you like, if you want to make it a little bit sweeter. But give it a go. It's really lovely, and it kind of you need to really shake it in the cocktail shaker. You give it a really, really, really good shake, because for some reason the pineapple reacts with the vodka and it creates a little bit of a foam on the top. So when you pour it into your glass, there's a little sort of head on it, like Guinness has. Obviously the base isn't black, but it's it's really tempting. You can kind of just sip it through the little foam at the top, and it's really lovely. So do have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever you're feeling like, and let me know what you think. Cheers.